Shive Sarvajashadike Sharanyadrayambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Sharanadatin Arta Paritrana Parayane Sarva Sharte Hare Devi Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute. O Kali, Mother Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, O thou most auspicious of all the auspicious ones, who is known for her sacrifice in saving the lowly and the fallen ones, to her who removes the sufferings of all living beings, we offer our eternal salutations, salutations, salutations. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has brought the idea or the truth of Divine Mother reality prominent in this age, and also attended by his divine consort, Sri Sharda Devi, who was my teacher's teacher, his wife too, together along with Swami Vivekananda are directly responsible for the reason why I'm here, for instance, teaching the Vedanta to all of you and throwing in good, healthy amounts of Tantra and Yoga and Samkhya philosophy from India too, because all of those are called darshanas, clear ways of seeing. And we have been looking into these various aspects called tattvas and mahatattvas, that is, principles and great principles, using this particular chart on your left. And that, of course, is filled with tattvas and mahatattvas. We looked at the main, maybe beyond tattva, when we talk about Brahman, or again, Almighty Father, or you could call it Tathagata Garbha, or Supreme Reality. That which you gain by attaining moksha, freedom, jivan mukti, being a living, liberated soul. Or Father of Yoga called it kaivalya, or sampragyata. There are different names for it in Sanskrit, which we don't have words for in English, which point to a vast cross-section of beings who have gone into these states and who have emerged to proclaim the existence of Brahman. In fact, not just the existence of Brahman, but that all is Brahman. That is, Brahman is that word in Sanskrit for the non-dual reality. And so it brings another veiled axiom forward for us to contemplate. It's very strange that the two greatest things, Brahman and Shakti, are those that are often the most veiled. That is, vision of the non-dual reality and a vision of the dynamic power that operates all of these other tattvas. Tattvas like the word, Om, we call it in our tradition. Moksha and kaivalya, as we just mentioned, reaching a living, liberated state, free of the trammels of things like nama, rupa, desha, kala, nimitta, which we will look at a little bit today. This platform she's sitting on, that's the definition that Swami Vivekananda gave us in the late 1800s when he came here for Maya, that flummoxing word. Call it sometimes humorously the queen of all four-letter words. So nama, rupa, desha, kala, nimitta means name, form, space, time, and cause and effect, respectively. And that's a good definition for veils. The idea is, and it's a sort of unique one for most people, is that whenever you hear a name or see a form, that's a veil over the formless reality. So form naturally and spontaneously veils formlessness. And you have come out of formlessness, as Sri Ramakrishna said, out of the eternal, which he calls the nitya, and have entered into the play of life. You have to have a form to do that. So you left your formless nature and you took on a form. Now let's see if you can associate with it, but not identify with it, is what the Indian seers are looking for. What the yogis like you to do is to just play in the form, but not get identified with it and attached to it, and therefore start to suffer bondage, start to fall into samsara, the Buddhists call it, or into maya, this four-letter word we're just talking about. So a lot of it is remaining conscious of what maya is. And it's not just delusion, and it's not just illusion. It's not like, say, a mirage in the desert, where you think there's water and there's not. And it's actually a definition and a metaphor they used to use for Maya before Vivekananda came along and said, no, really, Maya is a statement of fact. It's not just an illusion. He has a lecture called Maya, Statement of Fact, in his great works that you might want to read. So, and they ask him, what do you mean by that? It means name, form, space, time, and causality are real as long as you associate with them. There's another vada for you. It's the drishti, shristi vada. They call it. Drishti means seer, and shristi means like projection. Sometimes they call it even creation. So the creation is real as long as you see it. But when it's gone, can you really call it real anymore? That is, when you go into deep sleep tonight, where are you when you're not dreaming and you're not awake? You went formless. And so now it's time for you to analyze formlessness. And the conundrum comes up in meditation when you sit. You say, I'm trying to get beyond my mind. I'm trying to get beyond thought. And if I can do that, then I get into a good meditation where I start to feel some bliss, or I start to feel some balance, or maybe even the peace that passeth all understanding. I can even feel that. But the thing is that I can't really feel that until my thoughts run out. So they say, watch your thoughts until they dissipate. And then when they dissipate, it's empty. You see, everything's empty. And so the student comes out of that state, says, well, I did what you told me to, guru or teacher. I got rid of name, form, time, space, and causality in meditation, and I just saw nothing there after that. And is that all there is? And then the teacher responds, says, now that you've achieved that, pratyahara, sometimes they call it, meditate on that emptiness. And meditate on it for a long time. What you've actually done is taken the external world and the internal world. That is, world number one is outside, waking, and world number two is inside, dreaming or conceiving, right? You can live in your mind. People do. And pretty much eschew the outer world. Monks are rather like that in their early stages. Scientists are like that sometimes. Hermits are like that, you see, people who renounce the outer world and live in their mind. So you're really taking the outer world and the inner world and you're rendering them into one indivisible state. And that state is formless. And if you meditate on formlessness long enough, then you will see the light that everyone's talking about. Or if you're mystically oriented, you might hear the sound. Sound is called Shabda, Om, the sound of the word. In the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God. Or you might see the light. I am the light of the worlds, as Christ pronounced when he came out of his 40 days, in the forest. 40 days is a good time to spend trying to remove veils. That is, veils of a very major kind. Not veils that we would think of as everyday veils, like, oh, I wish I wasn't so sleepy, or I wasn't so restless, but veils that have to do with a cosmic design that come falling down, say, in deep sleep tonight over you. And it's very hard to rend them away, you see. We had that last week, the Curtain of Nescience chart, if you remember. It was one of our more recent charts where we looked at that veil that comes off of Mother that's of a design that starts in a causal state, comes into the subtle state, and comes all the way into the gross state. And as the veil penetrates worlds like that, it gets thicker and thicker, so that down here, that is out here in the world, it's very difficult for people to even know that there is such a thing as truth, what to speak of comprehend it. See, they're just thinking matter and senses, objects, enjoyment, death. See, energy, maybe if they get a little deeper, you see. But energy goes deeper than just the Big Bang theory. It goes into that man does not live by bread alone. It gets into an energy that's internal, that carries your thoughts. energy that carries your thoughts is called prana, psychic prana. And so if you get interested in profound depths like that, it's like a deep sea diver, you see. It doesn't stay on the surface where he gets rocked about all the time in a boat. He decides to dive in where it's all peace, 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 and he'll study the depths. So that's what you're going to be doing when you want to meditate on Brahman, or the word Om, or Divine Mother Shakti in her formless form. Those are great principles. Principle, again, there's no word in English to really describe truth. That's why when you realize it, you don't talk so much like I'm doing right now. You just shut up. But then maybe you want to, if you've caught a glimpse of it, if you get inspired by it, want to come out and share it with others, like Lord Buddha did after his nirvana, and want to attest to the fact that not only does God exist, but God is existence, with a capital E. And that hopefully will, as we said this morning in satsang, make people fishers of men, as Christ said. You'll begin to raise your children in the Dharma. You'll begin to get interested in speaking of the Dharma to others and perk their interest, because they're also potential dharmis, you see. They have all that knowledge back inside of them. Sometimes they describe the Guru, the Sufis describe the Guru as a person who sits by the river and sells water. This truth is in everyone. You see, it's a matter of how thick those veils are then. You see, Ramakrishna used to say that, some people's gold is buried under mounds of earth, and some people's gold, you just brush away a few pebbles, and there it is, shining. You see, so how much have you brought forward that Atmic potential, we would say. Vivekananda used to say, the Atman is the same in everyone and in everything. But there's two things you have to remember about a blanket statement like that, is that, number one, it may be the same in quality and quantity, but the vehicle that it resides in is more refined in the case of a human being than, say, an animal, plant, insect. See, Atman is there in those too, they say. But how much can the plant, and animal, and insect manifest that divinity? Mankind has it in spades then. And more than that, a seer or a seeress has it even in deeper spades, you see. They manifest it fully. So that's one thing you have to remember about the Atman. It's in everyone and in everything, but light reflects better on a mirror than on a leaf or a rock. So the vehicle that it's in is very important to make sense out of that kind of Advaitic statement. So this ushers us into some of these great principles that are shown on this chart with Divine Mother. You can see also that Nirvikalpa and Savikalpa Samadhi are here, that is formless Samadhi and wisdom Samadhis. There are different levels of Samadhi. We looked at the covering power and the revelatory power in terms of this Triputi, Prakasha, Vikshepa, and Avarana Shaktis. Those are powers of Mother. One of them veils totally, one of them distorts, and one of them reveals. So we want to get a hold of that revelatory power and apply that to everything, especially to our studies and to our meditations and so forth, and actually also to our sufferings. If you apply Prakasha Shakti to sufferings, then all of a sudden they reveal the reason why you suffer. It'll reveal your karmas to you, and then you can do something about them. Otherwise, it stays veiled, and you stay helpless, caught in the regime of name, form, time, space, and causality, without knowing that there's anything higher or better for you. We looked at Brahmagyan and Prema Bhakti. We've looked at all sorts of things. Last week, we looked at Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Trinity, and I brought a chart on that to show what a high station the Trinity is in our tradition. Every good tradition, it seems, has mention of some sort of Trinity. Threes are very important in many religions because dualities tend to bind, but so you need a back door or even a front door out of dualities, like pleasure and pain and life and death and so forth. So life and death would have to be accompanied by eternal life, as Christ has introduced that term, you see. So if you meditate on Triputis or threes, then you have this Prakasha Shakti, this opening. See, this freedom that you can avail yourself of to benefit yourself and benefit others. So in this case, the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva is a rather famous one. Brahma is the creator, and we would rush to probably substitute another word for that in Advaita. If you're talking about the Shakta-Advaita part of the Vada path, then you'd have to say projector, please, not creator, because nothing doesn't exist. You can't create something out of nothing. Something that always exists. Just a matter of whether it's manifested Prakriti or it's unmanifested Prakriti. And we will talk a little bit about that today too. I brought the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg chart for you to see. So something always exists, so you can't really accept creationism as an ultimate solution, philosophically speaking. And then Vishnu is supposed to be the preserver, you see. So we say, yes, sustainer, preserver. Those are okay. There's no real problem with that word. But then when you say Shiva destroys, then you come forward advaitically and say, please, let's change that word to dissolves. Returns everything back to its causeless, formless state. Because if nothing's born, nothing can ever die. If nothing's ever created, then it can't be destroyed. So you're just going back and forth between one of these very high and deep cosmic dualities called manifested and unmanifested, or if you prefer, form and formlessness. And you're not a very good scholar or meditator of formlessness yet, if you're a Westerner. It hasn't been given to you yet to ponder formlessness. And maybe you haven't had the time or spent the energy and time to look into formless reality and sit for hours that it might be necessary to do in order to penetrate through the veils of name and form and time and space based in cause and effect. So that's where we brought out the Shiva chart and went through the rounds. So I went through all the tattvas, all the principles on this chart, which shows Nilkanta. Shiva, just like Mother, Shiva has many names, and for this particular chart, he's called Nilkanta. If it were in color, this chart, which is very expensive to do, so I haven't done it, this dark space in his throat would be blue, see, because he has drunk the poison that was churned by the gods and the demigods, see, called suras and asuras. They got the snake, Vasuki, which is the underlying substratum of everything, got Mount Mandara, wrapped Vasuki around it, and began churning, and they dropped the churn into the ocean of existence called Ekarnava. It's a very famous story in the Itihasa of India. Itihasa means scriptural history and mythology and various stories that they have there. So when they churned this, and the reason they did it is because all good things would come out of that churning. So the cow of plenty came out, and Lakshmi's diadem came out, and the winged horse came out, and they were busy grabbing these things for themselves. And they didn't notice that this acidic poison was leaking out of the process too. You can't have good without bad. See, like Swami Vivekananda said, saying a good world is like saying hot ice. Nothing's all good here or all bad. So in this churning process, which you can imagine, Mount Mandara really is mind and its desires, see, because everyone's churning, their minds are churning with thoughts, aren't they? Based mostly in desire, so that they can procure certain things out of this ocean of matter. So it's all, of course, has its great symbology. Just as profound, maybe even more so sometimes, than Sri Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield at Kurukshetra, on which the Gita is based on. So in this case, this churning process then has resulted in this somewhat Hawaiian word here, hala hala. And very hard to find it in Sanskrit dictionaries. In fact, I couldn't. And so it must be some sort of sound that Vasuki made when he sputtered up the poison, you see. Something like that. And so they came to call it hala hala, you see. And this is this poison that when the gods and goddesses found out that the poison was eating through their world, the lokas, we'll look at some of the lokas today. They're down here, some of these flowers at Mother's feet, you see. Some of the lokas are all these flowers. In other words, the kingdoms of heaven within you are the lokas. They're more than just the physical universe. My father's mansion has many chambers, is the way he put it. So this poison was undermining their loka, eating through the foundations. So they called Shiva. And Shiva will know what to do. He's the god of destruction. He'll know what to do with things that destroy. So he came and gathered it all up. And this representation is into a conch shell, which it has its own symbology. And then he quaffed it all. See? And it would have killed him. It's a sacrifice, yagya. I have a chart on that, which I hope we'll get to today, but maybe next week. He quaffed that poison, and it would have killed him if it had have reached his stomach. But the Divine Mother herself, Shakta-Advaita-Vada, remember, was there, and she pressed his throat here so that it stayed in his throat, and that just turned his throat blue. So now he's called Nilkanta. And so there, in India, if you go around, you'll see this image quite a lot, not only in Shaivite homes, those who worship Shiva, but everywhere, because this idea of the transmutation of poison into nectar got a hold of the human mind, especially those who are interested in yoga, because yoga wants you to face off with the poisons of the world, not to hide from them, not to run away from them, but those negativities are open doors into higher reality. Your imperfections are open doors into higher reality. They're called malas, not the kind that you do your japa on, malas, but the kind, mala means imperfection, but it's an imperfection that's like an unripe fruit, that when this desire or this imperfection in you ripens, it's so set up as to put you closer to reality when it gets ripe. It's again like lifting a curtain. Curtain you work with for a while, and you've preordained that that curtain will be rent apart at a certain point and give you a vision of God. See? It's an interesting way of looking at errors, misconceptions, and imperfections, isn't it? Inconsistencies. That's the way the Tantrists look at them. So, tracing it back to yoga and then to this chart, Shaivism, a lot of people interested in making spiritual progress were very, very much inspired by this idea of Shiva transmuting poison into nectar. There are songs written about it I could sing you. But whatever the case may be, we looked at this chart last week and went through the whole rounds of everything. And I told you I'd bring a few things before we finish it out, and that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to concentrate maybe here on the non-dual sun of wisdom and the third eye and the sky of awareness, because these are Almighty Father types of principles. And also it'll bring in this full-blown awareness called Kundalini Shakti, which is here. Kundalini Shakti and the chakras. See, this strand of sugarcane has all these, as we well know in Hawaii, has all of these portions in it. So these are just like the spine and its centers, you see. Only, of course, this would be the subtle spine. The physical spine is just an external representation of that. But the subtle spine holds these lokas, holds these worlds, and many, many millions of subtle nerves are connected to them. And beings, souls, when they leave the body, whether it be at the time of death or when they dream or when they go into deep sleep, travel along these subtle nadis to these different centers. Your dream states will actually become a lot more lucid and a lot more real when you become aware of your mind using the psychic prana to travel to the kingdoms of heaven within you consciously, and also go formless consciously in deep sleep, called Sushupti. So Swapna dreaming and Sushupti, deep sleep, are two other states of your consciousness that they want you to explore. And of course, Shiva is a past master at that kind of exploration. He presides over the three worlds, gross, subtle, and causal. You see, those are the three worlds, basically the outer, the inner, and the transcendent, or waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It all has a correlation. There are even songs sung about it that we like to sing sometimes. Shiva Shankara Hara Tripurari Pashi Pashupati Pinakadari Jaya Shiva Shankara Hara Tripurari Pashi Pashupati Pinakadari. This is by Girish Ghosh. Did you know he wrote songs? One of the, sometimes they call him the Bohemian devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. He was the one that was addicted to drink and gambling and so forth, and got a complete character remake when he went to Sri Ramakrishna, though Ramakrishna did not declare to him that he had to quit drinking, or just said, stay in my presence for a while. And Girish became this glowing devotee over time, gave up all his shenanigans by himself. And so, he would know, wouldn't he, about transmuting poison, to getting out of bad habits, turning himself his mind into a higher frame of reference in mind consciousness. So he wrote this song. He says basically, salutations to Shiva, the triumphant one who embodies the highest good, who is the source of contentment and the invincible destroyer of all afflictions, who is the father of all living being and whose trident protects the three worlds. So this is the idea. You see on the shaft of the trident, unmanifested prakriti. Everything that's held in potential that hasn't come into form yet, which will come into form once the three worlds are in operation. That's her business. She will, with the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, will put these things into order. So you don't have to look at this as anthropomorphical beings. If deities put you off, or God with form is a problem for you, no problem there, really. You just have to look at them as energies, certain kinds of energies. And you can align them with something as simple as waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. You can say they're all my own conception, and it won't be an insult to them. All the gods and goddesses exist in me, just like trees and plants and flowers and oceans and universes and suns that take 11 centuries to fly around in a jet going 500 miles an hour are all inside of me. See? All came out of a concept. See? And that's called sankalpa. See, the mind's power to formulate worlds of name and form and time and space. They're all formulations, they're all projections. They're not actual creations or locations in space and time that are fixed, you see. They are really the kingdoms of heaven within you. And if you go inside and, as we used to say in the early days, spock them out, see, then you will find that my Father's mansion has many chambers, as Christ said after he meditated in the wilderness for 40 days. So Girish Ghosh should know about Shiva, so I wanted to bring up that song for you. But let's look a little bit at some of Shiva's let's call them aspects here. This is Jnana Chakshu. We didn't take it last week because I didn't have the chart with me, but here's really the research that I did in a nutshell on Jnana Chakshu. When Christ said, if thine eye be single, thou shalt know the truth, then he was talking about that third eye. We call it in Kundalini Yoga system the Agya Chakra, yes? And so it's below the Sahasrara and above the Vishuddha, you see. So just above the throat chakra, and the physical body is a outer representation of this, is this third eye center. And I found reference to it in 7 different religions. I was very captivated by the fact that it, not just that it was on some Hindu poster somewhere in the 60s and everyone saw a goddess or a god there with a third eye and thought how odd, or how strange, or how esoteric, or how attracting, or how enchanting, or how interesting. But actually, what is the deeper significance of it, and why do so many beings of so many different religions all acclaim it, you see, acknowledge it? So we'll get to that in a minute, but basically this chart, this quote here by Shankara again is very beautiful. He says, the world is nothing but Brahman, because Brahman is the only reality. See this always with your spiritual eye, and with an unruffled mind, and in all circumstances. For what is there to be seen here by the eye, other than the mere objects of the senses? In like manner, to that one who knows Brahman, what is there to be seen at all, wherever the intellect may play, except divine reality? So, juxtaposition there. Here on earth there's really nothing to see but the objects of the senses. In the same way, to a knower of Brahman, there's nothing to see but Brahman everywhere. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you put on colored glasses, you see everything yellow. See? Yellow glasses, sunglasses. You take them off. So that's why putting on the eyeglass of Brahman, so you see everything colored Brahman. All of this then turns into divine reality for you. And there's no schism anymore between relative and absolute, or samsara and nirvana, see? Or samadhi and maya, see? Or creature and creator, or God and mankind, spirit and nature. There's no more distinction. The line of demarcation's taken away. It's like Sri Ramakrishna say, draw a line on water with your finger, it lasts all but a couple seconds. You see? But put a stick over it, looks like two bodies of water. See? So the ego, thick, unripe, is that stick. It takes everything and makes it two. You noticed? 2 eyes, 2 ears, dual mind. In fact, dual mind turning into disparate mind, turning into distracted mind, turning into distorted mind, turning into fragmented mind. The two then becomes many without any foundation. It doesn't sound like a third eye to me, and it doesn't sound like if thine eye be singled out, shall know the truth. So, therefore, when Shiva, we talk about Shiva's third eye, you talk about the Jnana Chakshu. Jnana means wisdom, Chakshu means eye or to see. The eye of wisdom. Now, you can see what it sees. It sees and utilizes the gross senses. That is, smelling, tasting, seeing, feeling, and hearing are your gross senses. Remember to connect them with earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Smelling goes with earth, tasting goes with water, seeing goes with fire, feeling goes with air, and hearing goes with ether. So you've got 10 already, don't you, that you're supposed to become conscious of in yoga. This is like early yogic teaching. It's called alambanic meditation. It's not taught in hatha yoga classes or anything. You have to really be serious about yoga to go after this kind of understanding. You know, you want to have an eternal life, develop a spiritual life, become fisher of men or whatever, you need to know this cosmology. So right away you have 10 things that you can connect. The dots to, you see. My gross senses connect with the 5 gross elements. So that's what the third eye is overseeing. See, it's the real seer. Seer. See. Now it also sees and utilizes the subtle senses: odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, and audibility. Those go with these too, right? Earth with smell, with odor, and water with taste, with flavor, and so forth. So now you have 15 that are connected. You've connected the dots to 15 of your own kingdoms of heaven within you. See, your own chambers of God's mansion are starting to open up to you. And it's taken you from the waking state in the gross world into the inner world. But it's taken you there with some lifelines. Now you can go in without any fear. You can actually let go of the physical world, and your dream state and your meditations become more real. See? You feel more at home in the formless realm. You begin to acclimatize yourself to higher cosmological, philosophical, and spiritual regions. And you begin to feel comfortable there. This is good. See, this is good. You should have never left off being comfortable in your formless nature. Now, also sees and utilizes the causal senses: solidity, liquidity, luminosity, homogeneity, and all pervasiveness. Now you've got 20, you see, and they connect with each other right on down. Certainly earth, smelling, odor, and solidity go together. So now you're actually beginning to know how the mind can formulate and dissolve things. It has the power of solidification in it. Your mind can bring out projection style, the worlds of name and form and time and space. If the mind wasn't there, would they be there? Is the question you have to begin to ask yourself. If the mind didn't vibrate, or put it this way, when it doesn't vibrate, is the world there? Because in deep sleep, you have no world, you have no ego, you have no children, you have no money, no desires, no needs. You just feel subtle bliss, and when you wake up you say, that was a great deep sleep. I don't know what happened there, or where I went, or who I am, who I was, but I feel great again. And that 20 minutes of that will make you feel great, when 8 hours of dreaming will leave you a nervous wreck quite often. Gaudapada says that in Iskarika. Those beings who don't know the A, the U, of the M of Om, and they leave it disconnected, they become nervous wrecks. In other words, my waking state is real, but my dreaming and deep sleep state, they're nothing. I don't know the other two parts of my being. I don't know the other two forks of Shiva's trident, you see. I think that only the physical world is real. So now I'm a materialist, a sensualist, a hedonist, or worse. So I've left part of my kings of heaven unexplored. Haven't looked into those chambers of God's mansion. They're not real to me. See? So you can see how the third eye, then, this chakra is aware of everything, let's say, below it, see, or external to it. Now let's look at the other side of the chart. You can see how the third eye sees reality. This is from Krishna, basically. He says, Avinashantam, sees reality as imperishable. Right away, birth and death go away. No more do you have to even sing unless you want to. Namrichor nashanka, name jati beda, pita naiva me naiva, mata majanmaha. And you can sing to Shiva. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham Om. And as you sing Om, the A, U, and M comes out, and you are Shiva, and those are your worlds, and you make all the connections. You get my gist. Now I can quit singing and start talking again. So this is the connecting power there in you see. And so you're going to want to see all as imperishable. In India, if you think death is real, you've entered the fifth and lowest hell. First hell is ignorance of your true nature. Second hell is egotism. Third and fourth hell are connected, attachment and aversion. And the fifth hell is called fear of death. A snake is afraid of a frog. He should be having it for dinner, but he's afraid of a frog. That's you and death. See? You should be transcending death with every thought, yet death has you as a condiment on its table. Human beings are condiments for death. Let's reverse that process. I'm quoting right out of the scriptures. Human beings are condiments for death. Mm-hmm. They give themselves to death. They give themselves to the illusion of finitude. There's a good mantra for you, or a good koan. Worldly people, ignorant people, give themselves to the illusion of finitude, to the illusion of death. And they never know that, they never see reality as imperishable. That all this coming and going is mere nonsense, Vivekananda said. Where's the time when the soul will come? When all of time is in the soul. Where's the space to which the soul will go when all of space is in the soul? Mm-hmm. See how beautiful? Mm-hmm. An illumined soul would explain it to you. Time and space is all in you. And when you know that, then see reality is imperishable. You'll begin to see it. Also, sarvatra samavattistam. Sees reality dwelling equally everywhere. Sees reality dwelling equally everywhere. What did I just say early on? That the Atman, the divine nature of all beings, exists equally in quality and in quantity in everything. But it's just the mechanism that it abides in that is different. So, you need a human body. Manus yatvam. Human body is what you need to realize the Atman. Cow's body won't do, horse's body won't do. You know what I'm saying here, right? The story in the Upanishad. The gods, suras. And some of them went to the Lord and said, give us a body to enjoy things on earth. So he gave him a horse's body. And they got into it. That won't work. I just stand around eating the green all day. Like my mother-in-law says, oh, it just eats the green. Eat the green, brother. You see. The dog just eat the green. So he said, okay, and he gave him a cow's body. And now he's just being milked all day, you see. Didn't like that. So finally gave him a human body, and he said, this is well done. God stood up and said, this is well done. The human body is perfect. Now we can enjoy to the fullest extent everything here in the realm of name and form. So that's where I was going with that, in that direction. You see, this Manushatvam, you need a human birth. Then you need a good teacher. And then you need the desire to be free. And Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna's divine consort, and my teacher said, let's add a fourth into that in the sage. You need a mind that's on your side. Mm-hmm. Because you can have a human teacher, good teacher, a human birth, and a desire to be free, but you can fail in the end. She's seen it happen, she says, lots of time with aspirants. So what you need is a mind that's on your side and will take you to the goal. So those are really the four boons that you get. Human birth, good teacher, a mind that will take you to the goal, and of course, the desire to be free. Mumukshutvam. Rare, the desire to be free. It's not political freedom we're talking about here. That'll never happen. You might have noticed. And it's not the freedom of a vacation or the freedom to goof off, be lazy. That's just tamas. See. But the freedom that arises in the breast that is aspiring for truth, wants to be free of name and form and time and space based on karma. And then be free to come back and help others. Say, call it a bodhisattva, call it a jivan mukta. Whatever. In the different traditions, they have words for them. Sees reality dwelling equally everywhere. Sarvatra samavatistam. Now there's prakriti karma kriyamanani. That sees that nature performs all action, while the soul remains actionless. These little tiny sentences, stuffed with a few words, are your Vedantic koans. Each one will transmit to you a little bit different aspect of the same reality. You can come at it from different windows into a house. You can look in. This one is very profound in that way. It's actually a teaching from Sri Krishna, as I said. Know, Arjuna, that nature performs all action, that the soul is actionless. And if you can know that, then you'll develop your witness consciousness and you'll quit thinking that you're the doer. And you'll know that nature is producing all of this. And you'll stand off and become yourself again. I can now detach from nature. I can detach from the five elements. I can detach from the subtle elements. I can detach from the tanmatras. And I may detach and lift off of the gross physical station and become a purveyor of other worlds, an explorer of the inner kingdoms within me. And see Brahman everywhere too. Isn't that? You can see how these three triputis are very powerful when you put them together. So Shiva sees reality everywhere, sees reality dwelling equally in everything, and knows that nature performs all action, that the soul remains stable, static, immovable, indivisible. It's all pervasive, so it doesn't have to move. The minute you think I'll go visit my soul now, see, the soul was already there before you even had the thought. It was there before you were born. In the Mundaka Upanishad it says, anterior to both life and mind is this Atman. Anterior means before life and mind. So before the mind started to think and the world started to pour out of it, was this Atman. All-pervasive, eternal. Didn't we say that? See? And the third eye knows this. See? The shadow may know. The third eye knows better. Now, let's look at this last quote for the top half of the chart. The eyes are in the center of the forehead, but their gaze is always fixed on the three lower centers where eating, drinking, and sex life are enjoyed. Sounds like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa got into the mix and told us about these three lower centers. Because he said, when I came to earth and took on a human body, I only came down this far, to the heart. That's the drawing room of God where I can meet with the devotees and speak Dharma and talk truth. But I couldn't go any lower, eating, drinking, and sex life. See? That's where everyone is centered, and they're trying to move up. If they're trying to move at all, they're trying to move inward to this heart center, because once the heart center is opened, then devotion, compassion, love, service, sacrifice, yagya, all of those things exist there. In fact, I can remember a quote by Sri Ramakrishna. He said, when this center opens in meditation, then the man says, oh, what is this? What is this? That's all he said about it. Oh, what is this? What is this? He sees a great light. He hears the sound. The yogis often talk about hearing the sound in the navel, but its center is there in the heart. You begin to hear it as you transcend heaven and earth. That is, when you get beyond the level of the asuras, let's say, and the demigods and so forth, and you get on toward the level, inner level of the devas, the shining ones they're called, inside of you, then you hear this Om pervading everything. I heard it when I was in the crib, my first time. And then in my teen years, I heard it. And then I started meditating on it. And I knew that that was eventually the Om, you see. In the beginning was the word. But it was with God first, and then it was God. And I came to understand the triputi of that. In the beginning means origins. In the beginning was the word. God has no origin. So it needs a station to start things running. And guess who is there? See, Divine Mother of the Universe, that's where you'll meet her. She's the holder of the pool of Om, the potential of everything. There it is, unmanifested Prakriti. I still have to pull out the tip of the iceberg chart and show you that. So, beautiful quote by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The eye is really here in the forehead. Why do they look down all the time? Why aren't they looking inward, further, towards the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus, they call it, where meditation happens, where great insights, where great realizations happen, where nirvikalpa samadhi can even come upon you, or you can come upon it. Now, here's the references to the eye of wisdom that I found. In Christianity, I already mentioned, if thy eye be single, thou shalt know the truth. In Hinduism, Krishna says, they who perceive with the eye of wisdom, they truly see. Devoting themselves to wisdom, they are neither born at the time of creation, nor are they disturbed at the time of dissolution. But the deluded do not see me as I depart, stay, and enjoy. Only they truly see who possess the inner eye of wisdom. So, that's all beautiful, those three sentences, but my favorite part is they're not disturbed, they're not born at the time of creation, nor are they disturbed at the time of death. That's very profound. Isn't it here? You see everything is imperishable, and you also see that all action takes place in nature, not in you. Well, death and birth are actions taking place. So those aren't taking place in you. Put it together, you see, and witness your own death, and witness your own birth. And then you'll become like, say, Dalai Lama, who's supposed to have 13 or 14 conscious births, and can look back, can look back and see everything in Shiva's trident, gross, subtle, and causal, or the kingdoms of heaven within you. So remember his past births, his past parents, has connected all the dots, all the way back inside, you see. And there's a person who is used to that sound. Hala hala. You can certainly point out Dalai Lama, Mahatma Gandhi, people like that as beings who suffered very heavily so, but they did not get detoured. Back to the point here. They are not disturbed at the time of birth, nor are they, they're not born at the time of creation, nor are they disturbed at the time of death, isn't it? So those are the great examples. I have a story sometimes I tell about teaching in prison. I take these charts and teach Vedanta in the prisons. One ladies' prison, you see, one of my students came up and said, I have this cellmate who does horrible things to me 24 hours, and I can't get away from her. What do I do? And she described some of the things that were done to her by this person. I won't gross you out with them. So I said, well, then what you have to do is meditate on Mahatma Gandhi and all the suffering he went through, and meditate on Dalai Lama when Tibet was pillaged and destroyed and annexed by the Red Chinese. Meditate on beings who had so much more to suffer than you did. And so I came back 2 months later, and she said, well, what happened with your situation? She said, well, they moved her to another cell. So some solution will come from somewhere. You just have to change your mind and be open to it. And remember, having that cellmate was a great teaching for her. That's the poison. You see, hala hala, right? And it was her dose of hala hala she had to forbear. So she can look back at herself. How did I react when I had to swallow that poison? And next time I can do better when I'm challenged. So that's always the nature of the suffering of relativity. It broadens us. And we look back later and say, oh, I could have done better. I could have served more. I missed my opportunity, and so forth. Those are mantras we don't want to have anything to do with. What we want to do is broaden and expand to where things that were a bee sting become a mosquito bite, and then finally a fly buzzing around, and finally they're gone completely. They don't bother you. You're imperturbable. Another teaching in the Gita close to this one is that one who does not afflict the world and whom the world cannot afflict, that one is the true yogi. So he does not commit any violence against anything in the world, nor can the world in all its violence afflict him. That's a yogi. So you don't attain yogihood by not developing forbearance. Forbearance in the midst of troubles. So in pleasure and pain, in fame and in slander, there are all sorts of slokas in the Gita that direct you along that path. So a little bit of extra about the Hindu third eye here. In Kundalini Yoga, they say, as Kundalini traverses the sixth center or lotus called the Agya Chakra, currents of refined prana rise high. Visions, light, and external sounds are experienced, and the mind gets so absorbed that it loses normal consciousness. So that is the Agya Chakra here. Buddhism says, and Lord Buddha, Shakyamuni, said, I have the true Dharma hidden in my wisdom eye. True Dharma, all the teachings are there. In Taoism, the eyes are the windows of the soul. Between the two windows is the main door to divinity. Enter there to discover your inner divine nature, said Lao Tzu. So, Taoism. How about Gnosticism? The true gate is also the door to one's divine nature. It is the front door to heaven. It is located neither left nor right, up nor down. It is right in the center, and thus is called the door to divinity, or the white sun. In fact, there's even one I didn't put here that just occurred to me. The Rosicrucians and so forth say it's the white dove ascending. So when this eye opens, you actually see a cylinder of light, and it begins to expand. The clouds roll back, and you actually see subtle forms back in it, like islands in a blue sky. Sometimes they call it the blue pearl in some traditions. So now I'm thinking of actually 8, 9 Maybe there's an 8th, 9th, and 10th reference to third eye in Shaivism and in other traditions, you see, Rosicrucians. Confucianism says, 3 persons are walking together. Who is the master? They all have 2 eyes, but the divine third eye is the master of all of them. So you have 6 eyes there, but really there's only 1 eye. It's the master there in that little walk they take. So a little bit of information here of a deeper nature around the Jnana Chakshu, or third eye, coming from this part right there, and all filled with the sun of non-dual wisdom. And just because it's so higher and cerebral doesn't mean that there can't be devotion to it. It's not like devotion ends and wisdom begins, but actually devotion increases when you sing something like Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vandeham. Praises, O Lord, eternal praises, never-ending praises be unto Thee, who takest the devotees from earth to the highest realm of existence, be from the lower 3 centers to this third eye, to this Sahasrara. You have opened my inner eye of wisdom and given me insight and cleared my perceptions of doubts and imperfections. Therefore to Thee, O beloved, I offer all that I am. That's the tone and tenor of the singer and composer of this wisdom song, this devotional wisdom song. So you can even put this non-duality in terms of very deep devotion. Now, as far as mind and its desires, it might be good to take up the topic of desire in the remaining time in the first half. I gave it a lot of thought, actually, and came up after studying some different scriptures and so forth with basically what I thought was a compilation of about 9 different ways of dealing with desire, because it's a very knotty problem in religion. Almost all religions put the blame on desire for things. Like money is no problem, desire for money, that's another thing altogether. Desire and attachment breed, and then of course a person is robbed of their freedom by money and by wealth and fame and so forth. Name, fame, and gain games, Ramakrishna used to call it. They're trying to get things, see, and covet them when these things are empty and you can't take them with you after death. So some people, the seers, sit back and say, why are you seeking those things like that? Why don't you just move amongst the objects of the senses, enjoy them here and there, and so forth, and never attach to them. Just be free in the realm of the senses. So if you're going to deal with base desire, then you're going to have to look at these 3. Enjoying desire, satisfying desire, and satiating desire. Those 3 won't work. Those are pouring gas on fire to put it out. One cannot truly enjoy what does not exist and what gets taken away from others in the process. So that's the problem with enjoying desires, that you can enjoy, but it never satiates you. You never get fulfilled. And then it also takes away from others. That's why sometimes you say, why are you fasting? Oh, I'm fasting to prove that I can live without food for so many days. You ask someone else of a higher caliber of understanding, why are you fasting? Because I don't want to take food away from others. I want them to have the food. So there's fasting not being the most coveted of all austerities amongst the seers. Nonetheless, there are different reasons for doing it that are base and more refined, as the case may be. So that's one motive of these 9 that will not work as far as desire, will not cool the desire or satiate it. Satisfying desire, Lord Vashishtha says, Satisfaction of desires cannot be had through the worlds of name and form unless one has taken refuge in the Dharma. So all of a sudden we get a clue at this level of trying to satisfy his desires, that if we were to take refuge in the Dharma and the teachings, that all of a sudden that spool of our mind, the mind of Mount Mandara, you might say, that has these coils around it called desire and attachment, will start winding off the way they wound on. And the Dharma has that redeeming feature to it. You, as I was saying in satsang this morning and last week at class, if you just take the mind and put it in the teachings, as if your mind were a towel and the teachings were a lake, and just saturate the mind with the teachings, and all of a sudden your problems start going away and you become attracted to the Dharma, and the Dharma washes away all impurities. And with those impurities, of course, desire is one of the problems. One of the three unwholesome roots in Buddhism, for instance. Now, satiating desire, my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, said, satiation never comes. The infinite cannot be realized through the finite. It's a good mantra. It's a good Vedantic koan. The infinite cannot be realized through the finite. People think, I can get to God through the world. No, you get to God by renouncing the world. Who has ever gotten to God through the world? The experience of the world puts you through misery and suffering. You could say in that way, they maybe prepare me for getting to God. But the actual experience of God realization, that comes through grace. Everyone says that. It doesn't come through suffering. You're going to want to transcend suffering at some point. Bliss, the bliss that's unalloyed and uninterrupted, that's a whole different kind of happiness and joy. It's beyond happiness, it's beyond joy, it's beyond contentment, it's even beyond peace of mind, which is very high. Is this bliss that is unalloyed, that is no mixtures in it, and it's uninterrupted. It doesn't get interrupted by sattva, rajas, and tamas, the gunas of the mind. It doesn't get interrupted by lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, pride of caste, pride of lineage, shame, delusion, the six fetters, the six passions and the eight fetters, in other words. It's uninterrupted. So the infinite cannot be realized through the finite, so you turn away from the finite, you put your attention on the infinite. And all of a sudden, just like that, you see, you have satiated, you have found the problem, the solution for the problem of trying to satiate desire. So those are inferior modes. The superior modes are very interesting. You can fulfill desire only through the Dharma, as was suggested by Lord Vashishta, one of the ancient seers, and one of the 10 mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, the projector god. You see, we call him the creator, they're sometimes called. So only through Dharma can you fulfill desires. So you take refuge in the Dharma, like getting a mantra, finding a teacher, doing your spiritual practices, and all of a sudden your desires get fulfilled in the Dharma. Resisting desire through self-effort, avoiding repression. And that's a tough way. In fact, these next 1, 2 are very difficult, usually done only by very strong souls or by monks. One is called resisting desire, or another is calling destroying desire at the root via austerity. Those are very difficult to do. Not many people go that path. But there are hundreds and thousands of monks in the world too, many of them are taking that path. But some of these monks are more devotionally oriented, some of them are meditation oriented, some of them are Jnana Yoga oriented, third eye type of beings. And so some of them can manage the tearing of desire out by the roots and the replacing of the emptiness that causes, the scar that causes, by the presence of God, or the presence of some redeeming thing, as we were just saying. So those two, resisting desire while avoiding repression and destroying desire, are very difficult, but they are effective if you can manage them. The other three are surrendering desire, and that everyone likes, and probably the one most beings like would be sublimating desire. That is, surrendering desire being the various acts of yagya, and sublimating desire by removing poison from passion. Now here we get back to hala hala, right? Sublimating desire, that's kind of the whole point of that transmuting of poison of relativity to the nectar, amrit they call it, of absolute reality. That is, sublimating desire means that you're going to take it up the spine, take the energy up the spine. It's sort of like, if you were to explain it metaphorically, there's a great snake there, Kundalini, and it's rising out of its coils. In fact, if you go to teachers of Kundalini Yoga, the first question they'll ask you is, have you uncoiled the serpent yet? See? It's like going to a Zen Buddhist monastery. The first thing they'll ask you will be something about, have you died on your pillow, you see, or something. But in Kundalini circles, they'll ask you, have you uncoiled your serpent yet? So they want to know how far that great serpent of Kundalini power has risen in you. Is it penetrating through the realm of the ancestors, right there at the navel? Is it going to make it to the realm of the devotees? See, the kingdom of heaven within you, deeper and deeper. Where is it? So that sublimating power is what you're going to want to get a hold of in Kundalini Yoga. That is, your food has to be blessed. That would be the first thing. You say a mantra over your food. Then you begin to say mantra and do practice. And that prana that's in food turns into mukhya prana. That's healthy energy. Now that's where most people stop. Oh, I got good health. Now I can have longevity. That's it. I just wanted a good long life. End of their sadhana, you see. Now I'm a healthy animal, in other words. But I haven't realized my divine nature yet, you see. But mukhya prana, they say, can be transmuted further, sublimated into ojas. I call it spiritual orange juice, you see. Ojas is a Sanskrit word, and it really means a power from food that has been sublimated through practice, that comes and develops in you as the power of wisdom, as the power of knowledge. It emanates off of you like an aura. That's where the idea of an aura comes from. And particularly if it's worked on in a deeper way, the sublimation process then culminates in what's called tejas. That's the light of wisdom. That's where you get these masters who, yes, it happens. They can actually touch you with their hand or look at you with their gaze. See, that's called chakshu diksha. This is called hasta diksha. It happened to Arjuna. Krishna put his hand on Arjuna, and Arjuna had this powerful vision inside and said, take that away. It's too much for me. You see, that's a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Vishvarupa Darshanam is called. So there's such a great power stored up in this sublimation process that through the touch, through the eye, through a word, through a meditation, through a thought, they can transfer power to you. And this is going to be power that's been freed of its poison. They say there's a poison at every one of those centers. This poison here is called disorientation. Amrit is there, that is higher vision, third eye vision, but the tendency to get disoriented and fall from that perch, get lost, is also there. So there's a nectar and a poison. It's two petals after all, you see. One is outward going, one's inward going. So souls are coming out of the third eye petal into embodied existence. Hopefully they know what they're doing. And then they're giving up the form and going back inward into the other petal, into the ocean of light, the ocean of sound. And immersing themselves and destroying their form. That is, giving up their form, dissolving their form in bliss. Unalloyed, uninterrupted bliss, by the way. Ananda, they call it. It's a word for it. It's horripilation of the flesh type of ananda. It's hair standing on the end kind of. It's better than chikan skin, brother. Eyes roll up in the head kind of ananda, you see. Kundalini rising. Forget Sagittarius rising and all that. Try Kundalini rising. Go beyond astrology and get to your Atmic reality that's inside of you. Well, then there's, a little bit more about sublimating desire, because I think that's really apropos for the Westerners and for yogic aspirants of this day and age, contemporary times. But then there's also the transcending the desire, using non-receptivity to it. That's called asamvedana. All right, we could just call it asam. Asamvedana means I have developed this ability just to sidestep my desires, thank you, when they're headed my direction. It'd be like a train coming at you, destined to hit you, but you put your ear to the tracks about a minute before it got there. Oh, I see, danger's coming. I think I'll just step off the tracks, and whoosh, the thing goes by. So if you have a great karma coming from your desires, or great desires coming that are going to turn into actions that turn into karma, you can sidestep them. And this is a great art, asamvedana. It's also a teaching of Lord Vashishta, whose quote we read on the third eye chart. So these are the 9 ways in which I was able to gather from, and I put them into 2 modes, inferior and superior. Now, this teaching, if we have time for it before the break, is the way it would be concepted if you were going to talk about it like Buddha did, say, the wheel of birth and death. That's called Kala Chakra, by the way, the wheel of birth and death. That is, you're on this wheel of birth and death, and you never know there's such a thing as many lifetimes. You're in a one lifetime scenario in the box. So when you're born, you don't know where you came from and where you're going. And when you die, you don't know where you're going. There's no consciousness attached. There's no consciousness separate from matter. See, that's the real problem, isn't it? Any kind of biologist or scientist walks up to you and says, has a monkey there and says, this is our ancestor. This is our ancestor. You were once a monkey. See, well, I may have associated with the monkey form, but I was never a form. I was always the witness of the forms I took. I don't know about you, Mr. Scientist or Mr. Doctor, but consciousness is separate from matter, separate from form, separate from name, separate from cause and effect, transcendent of everything. Consciousness with a capital C is what the seers have realized. So you're not going to be able to convince me that in order to see my ancestors, I have to go to a zoo. It's not going to work on me. So, in other words, you're going to have to prove to yourself that you're not the form, and that all of your past lifetimes have been dreams, and all of your coming lifetimes are also dreams. If you're a good dreamer, more power to you. I said this morning at satsang that Swami Vivekananda was asked, should a man be reborn? Now that we found out that rebirth is a relative law here, and karma causes it, and desire causes karma. Now that we found this out, Swami, what should we do? Should we be reborn? He said, I certainly hope you will not be reborn. Not until you can do so in full consciousness. Inferring the fact that he was born in full consciousness. He was a Nityasiddha, eternally perfect soul. And number 2, that we should learn that art of conscious rebirth. And in order to have a conscious rebirth, we need to die consciously. We need to have our first conscious death. And in order to have your first conscious death, you're going to have to know that death is an illusion. That death happens in nature. But did you read the teaching, you see? Did you pay attention to the teaching? Nature performs all action, the soul doesn't. Birth is an act. Death is an act. So I don't partake of those, thank you. My soul watches while my mind-ego complex takes a dream. See? But my soul is always witness to that dream. And memory of that dream is stored back in my subtle mind, in my causal memory. See? And I need to recover it and bring it forward to know my rebirths. Krishna was saying Arjuna on the battlefield. Arjuna said, how do you know all this that you're telling me? Krishna said, I learned it from Vishvasvat. And Arjuna said, but he lived centuries ago. How'd you learn it from him? And Krishna said, I've had many births, Arjuna. I know all mine. You don't know any of yours yet. You haven't recovered them yet out of your causal memory, see where they're stored. So you need to concentrate, and guess what? If you open the third eye, again, it chakshu, there you will see the whole thing, plus a lot of other things that are going to be of great benefit and great interest to you. So when that eye becomes single, you shall know the truth. So this, and we have 10 minutes left to explain this, it's not that hard really. It might look a little bit complex, but basically here is samsara or maya. You see, it basically starts with cycles of maya. The movement, spontaneously alternating counteractive cycles. One's going one direction, one's going the other. No wonder people can't get off of it. The one that's spinning this way is called birth in ignorance, growth in selfishness, life lived in delusion, and death in doubt and fear. I couldn't know any better way to put it. No matter what happy little gray studies of life people live, they still have to deal with these things if they're worldly, if they haven't awakened to higher spiritual life, even just to religion, what to speak of spirituality. That wheel is spinning all the time. This wheel is called, you get on this wheel and it's called birth in heaven, and have to return to earth, and the study of conventional religion, observance of ethics, mundane habitual life, attachment to pleasure, and then birth back on heaven and earth with your ancestors, swapping back and forth with your ancestors. You know how many nations worship their ancestors? Why do you think they do that? I saw the name of a book today at Oxford University on Hinduism was called Feeding the Dead. It's a new book out, Feeding the Dead. So that's basically what the Shinto religion does, and what the Hindu religion does, at a fundamentalist level, is that they give yagyas and sacrifices to their ancestors all the time. You do it all the time, and you eat the food that's left over from that, and you offer it to your ancestors. We're talking about millions of people who do this, you see. So where do you think they're going after death, if not to their ancestors? So this is a great wheel. It's called samsara pragbara in the oldest times. Then it was called samsara in Buddhist times, and it's called maya in Vedic times. They know about these wheels. That's why I fashioned them as circles. So if you have millions and millions of souls going one way in selfishness, dying in doubt and fear, then you have other souls practicing conventional religion and observance of ethics just for pleasure and power to lord over others. Then what do you think Maya consists of? You can give it a new definition on top of Swamiji's. Name, form, time, space, and causality are all going on in those two wheels. And that's all happening in nature. The acts are all happening in nature. Manifested and unmanifested nature, aren't they? As you leave form, you go to unmanifested state, you carry in your mind the effects of these desires that are unsatisfied, and it kicks you back. And your first mantra you hear is wah, 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 as you hang upside down, as the midwife cuts your umbilical cord and you don't know what's happening. So, you should be saying, who am I, who am I? But your mantras become, why me, why me? If you're asking, who am I, you're getting to the core of the thing. You say, oh, I am the undying, birthless self. You see, Shankara sings it nicely. Aham nirvikalpo. I am nirvikalpa. I am beyond birth and death. Nirakara rupo. I am beyond cause, kara. Nira, I have destroyed cause. I am the very form of causelessness. Vibhutvacha sarvatra karmendriyanam. Beyond the senses. Chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. Om. the 6th verse of the Nirvana Shatkam, the 6 verses on Nirvana, sung by thousands and thousands of monks, see? And by a few poor little souls like myself who learned them from monks. So basically, he's saying, I am nirvikalpa, I am transcendent of all kalpas. Kalpas means imaginings in time. I have gone beyond the mind's power to form and dissolve things. Because basically I realize that all takes place in nature, and I am not nature. See? I am the sentient, all-pervasive soul called consciousness, timeless, deathless awareness, Atman, Buddha nature, however you want to call it. Here on this side you see Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyan Bhargo Devasya Dimohi Diyo Yona Prachodayat. See? The great Gayatri mantra, again chanted by millions and millions of people daily, multiple times. So Bhur-loka is these are the 7 realms, and these 3 are all the realms of return. See? They go by the moonlit path. They go to their ancestors and then they come back. It's the moonlit path, it's the dark path, and they go by the sunlit path, see? Never to return again. So basically this is putting it in terms of worlds or lokas inside. Well, I swear I will get to that chart on the tip of the iceberg after the break. We'll see that. So if you make it out of the tendency to transmigrate and trade places with your ancestors, this is why Buddha sat so many days under the bo tree, to kind of penetrate through that Kala chakra and get off the wheel of time. So one of his last teachings was, get out of the river and sit on the banks, and you'll see everything go by, and you'll see the same thing go by eventually if you watch long enough, and you'll know it's all cyclic. If you know it's all cyclic, you'll want to get off the merry-go-round. A child gets sick if he stays on too long, see, loses his lunch. So basically, you're going to want to get off cycles when you find out that you're bound onto cycles. I want to be free. Freedom. So that line of demarcation there between the realms of heaven, earth, lower heaven and higher heaven, Bhur, Bhuva, and Swarloka, gets penetrated, and you find these 2 wheels. And we will start there after our break, because there's not enough time. But this is a good place to start, because it will lead us into the teaching of manifested and unmanifested Prakriti. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatung Yagyaya, Gatung Ye Nupataye, Daivi Swastarastu Naha, Swastir Manusebhyaha, Urdvam Jagatu Bhesajam, Samno Astu Dvipade Samchatushpate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a sincere offering into the Great Self. May we always revere this offering, and always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity also then abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Shama Kokono Purusha Kokono Prakriti Kokono Shunya Rupare Kokono Purusha Kokono Prakriti Kokono Shunya Rupare Kamalaka Saha
Kanto Baba Vabiye Sahaje Panga Olore Shamama Kiyama Kalore Shamama Kiyama Kalore Makiyama Kalore Shamama Kiyama Kalore.
Often I wonder, is my mother Kali really black? My heart has become illumined by meditating on her radiant splendor.